All right.
Hello, everyone, to Everyone Belongs podcast.
Hello, everyone. To Everyone Belongs? You mean like welcome?
Yeah.
To Everyone Belongs?
Hello, welcome. And that's not Ben being an asshole. That's just Ben being Ben.
I got confused again. I'm not mean. I'm just very literal and sometimes neurotic. It's not my fault.
That's not what you're supposed to say.
My mom's an Asian. Okay. Yes. This is a podcast where we are exploring life beyond tribes and organizations to see what's possible for a love that's like big enough for everyone. And we have really needed to know the answer to this question because we've got kicked out of some groups. And when we got kicked out, all of a sudden what was kosher and cool and worked for us no longer worked for us. And then all of a sudden we're asking different questions. Hence the name of this podcast and kind of our drive and our bent. And we've spent the first 7 episodes, I believe, telling our story, a brief summary. We grew up very Christian, American Christian, and got married young. We're pretty good. We're trying to be missionaries and worked in churches. And we got kind of like uninvited to one church because it was a little competitive, we felt. They didn't want to share us with another ministry. And then we dedicated our life to this discipleship process called the Story From Life, and this idea of family teams, which we'll talk about a little more, which is this idea that the ultimate plan for the Bible is God's design as displayed in the Old Testament. And then we felt like we got kind of ambushed by this group and excommunicated, but never explicitly. A lot of it was done behind the scenes and in secret through letters. And after a crap ton of trauma and 3 years of therapy and healing, we were ready to tell the story about it.
Yeah.
And the last 3 episodes, I believe, have been us doing a Q&A from you guys about our story. And we're still doing that.
This should be the last Q&A.
This has got to be it. We got to move on.
We got to wrap this up.
We really do.
Okay.
And the topics we're going to be covering today are questions specifically to Cammie, questions specifically to me, and then questions about our theology or theological questions. And I'm a little bit dreading those. But first, can I say this? You want some good news, Cammie?
I do.
Guess how many reviews our podcast had? I think last week it was, I don't remember what it was last week.
I don't either. So how many reviews total?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that we have 70.
Oh, I'm so glad you guessed a number lower than it actually is. It's 81, and we are currently sitting pretty at a 5-star
Wow.
review.
81.
Rating, whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, 81 people rate this.
Wow.
Which is like, if you think about it, like on YouTube at least, let's say each video has like 1,000 or 2,000 views. That means like 5% of people are taking time out of their day to rate our podcast. Mm-hmm. But you know what? It's not enough. Because I saw 81 and I was like, it'd be so nice if it was 100. And seriously, if we get 100, I'm going to leave you guys alone, I think. Like, it's possible I never bring it up again.
So we need 19 more souls to please.
And the reason why, I mean, I'm going to be a little manipulative, but then I'm also going to not be. Like, the reviews are nice. It makes us feel good. It helps us. I mean, we might make money off this someday. We might, I don't know, write a book. And in that case, having more listeners and more views or reviews helps. Right now, we're not, none of that's even, I think we make like $2 a week. and there's no books in the pipeline or anything. But what I like about 100 reviews, and I don't even care if it's 5-star. If you think it's a 4-star podcast, give it 4 stars. If you think it's a 3-star podcast, give it 3 stars. But tell us how we can improve too, because I want to improve. But the thing that I like is that our story, which is a story that is not usually told publicly, we found, is being told. And a lot of people are telling us that they resonate with our story, that our story is really their story, or their story is our story. And to me, what that means is I want these stories to be told more. And the way that we can, I think, support this type of story, and this is what drove me crazy and got me asking people, is I saw people giving me 1-star reviews, and I feel like those are people that just don't want these types of stories to be told. That's my hunch. Because I don't think it's a 1-star podcast. It could be a 3-star podcast. I'm down with that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a 1-star podcast, and I think people are trying to silence the story. That's why it would help my neuroses to just have a round number like 100.
Yeah.
I'll leave it alone. Thank you in advance. Let's get on with the show.
Okay. So our first category is Cammie. Cammie, I'm curious about your position in all this. What were Stephen and Jeremy saying to you? Were there attempts at coming between you and Ben? I tend to gravitate towards partners who are often outcasted, and this is really hard for me. My current partner is always in this situation, and I have a hard time balancing being supportive of him and wanting to play nice with our community. It's always the politics that he's trying to take down that get him in trouble, but that doesn't mean he's totally innocent. I tend to be very critical of my partners, and this situation you went through would have been so hard for me to stand by his side if everyone was coming at him. As Ben has admitted, he isn't always the one to blame, but definitely has his flaws. How did you handle this, especially without family support? You are badass. From Rachel. Thank you.
I agree.
I love that. You are badass.
I'm anxious to hear your answer on this.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go through these questions. What were Stephen and Jeremy saying to me? Not a whole lot. As it turns out, this system is more interested in males than females. And also, Ben was their primary target. So I don't really think they had a whole lot of interest coming to me. In fact, I actually felt pretty left out of at least the beginning process when Ben got ambushed, but we didn't know he was going to get ambushed. I guess that's the whole point of an ambush. I wasn't a part of that. And I wasn't invited to that. So
I didn't invite you to that.
Yeah, and
no one knew it was going to happen except for your brother.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, we kind of thought it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. And for a long time, this is something I haven't really shared. I actually was pretty angry and upset towards my brother first, and saw and pleaded or asked Stephen and David to help and say, because I kind of thought, I was like, oh, maybe they see that this is like crazy, like what Jeremy's doing. Turns out, no, they didn't really, And but at one point, I actually that's where I went with it. So were there attempts at coming between you and Ben? Not overtly. I wouldn't say with Stephen at all. Didn't really feel that way. With my brother, however, I did feel like there was this appeal to family, like I'm your family. And only more recently do I have felt this, where he wanted to meet with me, but he doesn't want to meet with Ben. And I just felt this, I'm not really interested in that, kind of singling me out, because I'm not your problem, but he is. Anyways, so Yeah, I mean, I definitely had my moments of feeling of blaming Ben and saying like if his personality wasn't this way, like maybe we wouldn't have to go through this. But at one point, or for the most part, I don't those times were really fleeting for me. And it was really confusing. It was super confusing for me because I felt like um, was Ben the problem? Were these other people the problem? Was I the problem? And I probably went through a year of just ping ponging back and forth till I eventually, with the help of our therapist and all that, saw this as more of a belief systemic problem. Um, and yes, Ben has his issues, but no more so than I. Um, so, yeah. I mean, it was really, really tough. Yeah, I didn't have my family to support. My family was part of the problem.
I think, with what you said, it's weird that they didn't kind of come between you and me, or even, another angle is why didn't they warn you? They're talking to all these people. Yeah. They're supposedly concluding that I'm like very dangerous. And, I think our conclusion from this, it's what you said, but I want to reiterate it.
Yeah.
Is that women are not seen as having the power. They don't wear the pants. They don't have the voice. In other words, they're not a threat. So trying to get them on your side. So this is only important if you look at who else they did go to and who they were trying to get on their side. And it was a very specific type of person. It was married men with families. Mm-hmm. Those were the people that got warned, that were within the community. Mm-hmm. If you were outside the community, you didn't get warned. If you were a single man, you didn't get warned. If you were a woman, you didn't get warned.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my brother even came to me. This was before all this shit hit the fan here. So this was a while back. And even said, like, I don't want to get in between you and Ben. So I don't really think he saw that as a good strategy. Probably. But yeah, I mean, I actually really do think like this really tested our relationship. Like, where were we at with all of this?
So let's go a step further, because she asked this question. She's struggling with trying to be supportive of her husband or play nice with the community. So what did you learn about that, or what would you suggest about that?
Oh, I think I had to choose. I mean, I think it's kind of unfortunate I had to choose between my community and you. But it was also not super difficult for me because I do think I had a stronger bond with you than with them. I also feel like this was, at least with my family, I had issues with them way long before this. And so it kind of just reiterated those issues for me. If I had like this super tight bond with them, I think it would have been like really a lot harder to decide.
I want to clarify, though, what you mean when you say that you chose me over them. Because I think the picture people could get in their heads is like, they're like, all right, pick a side. And you're like, I'm my husband. I will never leave him. No. I believe everything he says. I trust him 100%.
No. Yeah, I should say I had to think through for myself what I believed about the situation. I didn't just pick you, I don't think, because I liked you better or I felt safer with you, even though those were all true. At the end of the day, I realized I don't really want to be a part of this belief system that does this to people. I don't want to be a part of that anymore. So,
because what I've seen with you and me is you haven't just chosen me. You've chosen to be outside the system. You've chosen to stand up to these forms of oppression that we talked about last week, these 8 forms of kind of like mind control that cults exhibit.
Yeah.
And you've chosen to side with the outcast and the underdog from these types of systems. I mean, I've seen it happen with a lot of people besides me.
Yeah.
And I don't think even you chose them over the system. I think the system forced us to choose because they basically put us to a choice. And we were fine for a long time actually still being in the system. Like we were fine with it and trying to force it. But they're the ones that excommunicated us. We didn't leave.
Yeah, I think at some point I just realized how... At some point I just could see through it. And I don't know when that happened, but I was just like, man, this is really sucky. And if I keep believing these things and if I keep trying to be a part of this community, I don't think I'm going to treat my other people very well. I'm not going to treat even myself very well. And yeah, I would, but it was really painful to leave. But I really didn't see another choice because I could see it for what it was. Finally.
Next question.
Yeah. Okay, this is from Amy. I'm curious how you handled this when most of the problems seem to surround accusations against Ben. I'm not insinuating that what happened to you all was Ben's fault. When you guys were still submitting to the process, how hard was it for you to submit as well, even though the accusations were centered around things your husband did and not what you did? I think for the first part, it was easy for me to submit. Like we've said in previous episodes, we were trained to submit. Like this is what you do to be a good Christian. This is what you do to find favor with God. You submit. So I knew how to do that. So that was second nature for me at the time. But after a little while, when I started to see how Ben was being treated, at first it was by my brother, but then later by others, I started to really question submitting to this. And I also think being in therapy helped me to also see that there's other ways to look at this than just to submit.
Can I say something else too?
Yeah.
I mean, I think what's weird about this was, yes, the accusations were against me, but once again, it wasn't because I was the guilty one and Cammie was sitting at home innocent.
Yeah.
We had made most of these decisions together.
Yeah.
And we have very different personalities, obviously, and mine is more forthright and aggressive. So oftentimes it was my idea or my initiation. But we've, if this is something you could pat yourself on the back for, I would say we've been on the same page in our marriage a lot, like very well, like more than most people. Yeah. I mean, I've been a stay-at-home dad for 10 years. We have like 3 hours a meeting just dedicated to connecting on our relationship on different levels, whether it's business or date night. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that to say, like, we made all these decisions together. So when they're calling me out, it wasn't because like I was the guilty one and she was innocent, but they were treating you like you were a victim and I was a perpetrator and I had the power and you weren't like smart enough or bold enough to make your own decisions.
And I had moments where I believed that because I was indoctrinated to believe that I was weaker. Even my personality went along with that. And, Ben was being called prideful and narcissistic, and those words got in my head. And I was like, well, maybe he is. Like, what if he is kind of this like psychopath or something? And I'm, So it took a couple years for me to kind of untangle that fully and to really kind of see things for what they were. Okay, so this
is your last question. Ooh, and this is a good one.
Is from Lang Pickles, and this got 9 likes. The one thing I wish would have been explored more is Cammie's journey. Much of it has focused on loss of friends, business partners, and the effect on Ben, but Cammie has essentially lost her family of origin, and the loss that your children have experienced through this. I really appreciate Ben's honesty and attention to detail, but it can begin to feel very patriarchal, which is maybe tied into the structure of your past religious life. But I think you are potentially losing a very important part of the story in Cammie's journey. As a woman watching this, it is very hard at times seeing her experiences glossed over or rushed through, submissive almost. I don't know, I guess just a few weeks ago when Cammie spoke up, it felt like a fuller story. And every week since I come back, hoping to have that experience again. Yeah. Okay. So this is a question that I've pondered quite a bit because a lot of people have pointed this out, and I've tried to actually really think through it and say, okay, how much of this is the indoctrination still like seeping in? How much of this is just my fucking personality? Like you and me, like if you want the fuller story, give me some alcohol and sit in front of me. And if I kind of like you, like I'll probably give you the fuller story. But it's really hard for me, my personality, to do it in this format. And I try.
Dude, by the way, if I interrupt in this segment, I will get my ass kicked.
Better, yeah. So, I mean, I honestly think, I hate the word submissive, but I'm going to use it in this. I think there are more submissive personalities. I don't think that needs to mean weaker. I don't think that even needs to mean, that doesn't have to be gender oriented. That doesn't have to be biblically oriented. I think there's better words for it, probably like more passive, more reserved. I like reserved actually a lot. And that is, my personality is more reserved than Ben's. Is there some like crossover? Oh, I'm sure. You know, I mean, we had 16 years of marriage in a certain way of thinking of, this is your role, this is my role. So I'm sure there's some of that. But I really do think most of what you're seeing now at this point is personality based. But I will try to give more. That's why I keep showing up.
Well, I think
I want to give more. I want to be a part of this.
So I have a beef with this, and I actually think this person was very polite, and we got another comment that was accusing of some other things, but I don't think people realize like how this podcast is made, and also how dangerous it might be to assume motive or assume intention.
Yeah.
I get it that people don't like certain things. They're like, I want to hear Cammie more. I want to hear about birth story more. I want to hear about this. I'm like, great, okay. Preferences are awesome. Like, we all have them. But then when you take it a step further and you're like, oh, he's doing this because of this.
Yeah.
That's reading into someone's heart. And I just think it can get a little, I think it can get a little dangerous. And so I want to dive into this just for a little bit. So, like, let me share just one quick story. So I remember, I don't know what episode it was, but we were talking about the birth, you know, and you were telling the story more. And according to the audience or some comment, I cut you off and I was like, hey, we need to get on to this story.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize, like, this is my podcast in terms of my job that we've agreed. Like, I produce it, I publish it, I create it, I ideated it, I outline it, I do all the printing and prepping, like, hours. And Cammie shows up. And for a long time, it was even hard to get her to show up because it's just not her cup of tea in terms of her energy is not in a place where she is dying to get this story told. She could die and she wouldn't miss it, I don't think. If I died and I didn't get this story out, I would feel like my life's mission was at like risk and stake. So every day I'm like thinking about this.
This is more your passion. I have a passion in it, but this is more your passion. And my beef is when people signal out personalities and genders, and certain personalities with certain genders don't go over super well with certain people.
Yeah.
And Ben having a more aggressive personality, I think it's really easy for people to get triggered by that. and I'm not even saying this person did. I'm just saying I even have gotten. I mean, I get that happens, but like Ben said, to assume motive.
Well,
I
so
don't know.
what I was saying was I cut you off on this birth story, and I was like, hey, we have an hour, and we have to get through this, and this, I'm the one kind of making the publishing calls on this, and people were complaining in the comments like, oh, you cut Cami off, like hearing her birth story is beautiful. I'm like, we have a vlog channel that we made for 4 years where we have the birth story told 10 times.
And where it's just me talking
a
lot of times.
And it's great, and we love it, but it's there, and this is not that.
Yeah.
And my job as the producer, not as the man, but as the chief storyteller or whatever you want to call it, is to keep the story as much flowing. And this podcast does not happen on accident. So I guess the things that were kind of triggering to me is this whole patriarchal thing, which kind of just it dumps it all on the fact that I'm a male. And I actually think I don't think it's really that respectful to Cami in her personality as a female. It almost paints her as weaker. Like she is submissive to me. The second thing, and this word was used, I think in a private message, if I remember, but I was accused of gaslighting, which is a very common term now that I hear a lot, specifically in the ex-evangelical community. So I want to read, because I've looked it up 4 times and I'm always unsure, but it says, gaslight is a verb to manipulate someone by psychological means into questioning their own sanity. And we've definitely been around systems that do that, but it's crazy. I'm being accused of doing this to you. Not this person I don't think was 100% confident, but it was also they were kind of, it wasn't they were asking. It was kind of this is how it feels and this is what I've concluded.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is the comment they were going off of, but sometimes you're just that's weird. You have a very blunt way of putting things. Your personality does that. And to me, I'm sometimes that could hurt my feelings, but most of the time I'm just yeah, you just don't get it, do you?
I say that because I think it's weird, not because I'm trying to shut you up.
And
or
I'm
something.
Oh, he just doesn't get it. That's okay. Move on or whatever.
But the final things I want to mention about this is when I think these are important accusations, and I actually think we should be curious about this. I would like to be, at least. Mm-hmm. But the question I ask is there evidence of this in my life, across my life? I mean, we live in a house that has 4 girls / women.
5, if you include
and
me.
Cami.
Yeah.
So but when I see our teens and Cami, I mean, if you saw our house, we don't have submissive women around here. I don't know how many times I get the middle finger or told to fuck off or shut up or ignored altogether.
Or just yelled at.
Whatever. It's okay, I have my personality and I can be a badass, I think, on a podcast where I'm I act like I run the show, and I am here. But, I don't...
Yeah.
And I'm still the dad. I don't know. It's just I'm looking at more evidence. And most importantly is, what does Cami think? That's what I'm really curious about. Not what does an audience think that doesn't know our personalities. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but that was really... That's a tough thing. And I feel like we've dealt with this so many times, and I don't want to explain it anymore.
But we probably will have to.
Okay, my questions for me. Yep. Should I read these?
How about I read them? Just because you talk more just in general.
I will submit to you.
We'll give people...
give people what they want.
Both our voices. Okay. All right.
Actually, there's one more thing I'm going to say about what we were just talking about. The interrupting thing. It's a style, and sometimes I like it, and sometimes I don't. In that, I'm louder and more aggressive, and I speak up first. And a lot of this podcast exists because of that aspect of my personality. And it's easy for Cami to get overrun. So I'm constantly her cheerleader and saying like, speak up, like, let's go. Like, I want to hear your story. Like, let's just film you. I'm always encouraging her. And someone else left a comment like, Cami should have her own episode. I'm like, Cami doesn't want her own episode. Like, so we're not cartoon characters that you get to manipulate. You know, we're people that like have stories that got here. And, you know, even for you to make music, I was the one that bought you a guitar. I was like, Cami, your voice is beautiful. Like, I want your voice to be heard more. Like, I encouraged her to start an Instagram channel where she does her music. And that's more your gig. Like, I've seen you blossom with that. But,
yeah.
So when I interrupt, you know, sometimes I'm like, okay, I know that comes across as annoying and some people don't like it. But to us, it's not necessarily disrespect. It's like when you're in a loud Italian family and they're yelling. It doesn't mean they hate you.
Yeah.
It means that's how they talk.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so these are questions for Ben. And this is from Christine. Do you still think you have an exaggerated need for significance and intimacy? And what are you doing as practices in that line?
So for those of you guys that are wondering about this question, this is what our therapist in our second appointment, I believe, his like kind of off the cuff diagnosis was. He said, because we were accused of having pride, and he said, I don't think it's pride. He said, I think you have an exaggerated need for significance and intimacy. And it was at that moment that I felt like, whoa, I think I'm going to keep on paying this guy money because I think he really understands me.
Yeah, I was going to say you felt really understood, I think, in that moment.
Yeah. You know, the question is a little bit weird to me because it says, what are you doing as practices in that line? I'm not quite sure what she means, but I no longer see this as a problem that needs to be fixed. I think in the past I saw things as sin and unhealthy and you need to like fix this. And so I guess our first question is, do you still think you have this? I don't know. I feel like I live an exaggerated life and I'm not quite sure why. Where like I don't do things small. I don't do things unnoticeable. Like if I'm going to go for a hike, my mindset is like, well, why hike 100 miles when you can hike 2,000? Or why run 4 miles when you can run a marathon? Yeah. That's just how I think. And I've always lived that way. And I'm at peace with it, I guess. The one follow-up I will say, the way that I'm different, I think, as a more mature version of myself through therapy is that I'm aware that other people are not like me and that other people have valid reasons for the way that they live. I mean, I used to, I don't know if it was egotistical or whether it was just my, like Enneagram 8s, I think are more like this, but I thought everyone should be this way, you know, or I like pickles. Everyone should like pickles. Like this, they're so awesome. How could you not like pickles? If you don't like
pickles, you're stupid.
You're an idiot if you don't like pickles. Like, I mean, these are the most amazing pickles in the world. And I just like talked and I thought that way.
Yeah.
And I thought that way about ideas. I would discover an author. I'm like, this author is amazing. I'd want to buy everyone this book. And I would just think that they would all love the book.
It was very black or white.
Yeah. And now I just don't, I'm more aware that, you know, different personalities are different and just as valuable and just as important.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that I've seen that in you a lot, that growth. Because I can especially see it in our relationship.
Yeah.
All right, next question is from Robin. Ben, what is it like to have people put you in such high regard? Such regard that you would teach leaders of the church, mentor so many, and on and on. Are you leery of taking on such a role now? And do you see it as harmful or helpful?
That's a really interesting question. It's really weird. I started noticing about 10 to 15 years ago that I was a leader, and sometimes I wanted to be, sometimes I didn't want to be. And I was just like, people would start following me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I guess all I can really say is it's really mixed. There's times when I enjoy it and like it. There's other times when it's a curse. You know, we were, as our community was falling apart, we were leading it. I didn't want to lead it. I just wanted to hang out with these people and be friends. We just had the money and bought the houses and built what we wanted in our head. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of people we weren't like bossing around or telling them what to do, but it took us a long time to realize that they had given us power that we never asked for. and put us in a larger than life position that we never wanted. And what I saw is, I mean, there's this phenomenon when you go up to a famous person and you ask them for a selfie, or you ask them for an autograph, or you treat them like a hero, you cannot be their friend. You have put them in a position where they play a role in your life that is like a hero or a caricature, or they are on a pedestal. And maybe they put themselves there, but maybe you put them there. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that famous and rich people and other people deal with is there are a lot of lonely rich people, and part of it is their own doing, but part of it is the way our culture... I need to go turn that off. Can you go turn it off, actually?
Yeah.
Part of it is the way our culture puts certain people on pedestals, and that makes it really hard for me, because in a way there's people that like look up to me, and I don't want them to look up to me. I want them to be like, dude, you're just a person, and don't treat me different. Like, just buy me a beer and make fun of me, and let's hang out late, and don't like not call me because you think I'm so important or something. So I've found that in whatever the church leadership game is and the business game, it's a game, and I'm good at it. And when you're good at it, you're elevated in our culture.
So do you think it's harmful or helpful or both?
It just is. There's pros and cons.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to use my talents to the best of my ability. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to be aware. I'm more aware of the impact that it has on relationships than ever. So when I hang out with some people, I'm like, I guess I need to be aware that they might be looking up to me. It's like, for example, I guess, I don't know if it's like illegal or what. It's a big no-no when a teacher has sex with a student. And the reason is because there's this power imbalance. Well, with a teacher and a student, it's really obvious. Now, I was never like an official pastor or teacher, or I was never like an appointed leader. I never had a title. So and the sex analogy is, I guess, a little bit gross in a way. So I'm not trying to be sexual with it, but I'm just saying a lot of times I thought we were friends, but I had seen that there was this power imbalance where they were almost seeing me as a teacher. So when I suggested something, it was almost like a teacher propositioning a student for sex, where it's almost an unfair situation for the student because they see there's a power imbalance. Yeah. But I was unaware of that. So now I'm just aware of it more, and I'm like, around certain people, I'm a bit more maybe uncomfortable, and I have to just be more careful, I feel like. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's weird. There's some people we've been able to be friends with that we've met from the vlog. Mm-hmm. But there's some people where they think the vlog is so cool and we're so cool, and I almost know right away we can't be friends because you think I'm like so cool. And I'm like, okay, I am kind of cool, I think, but I'm not like different.
You're cool until you're not cool, basically.
Exactly. Thanks, Cammie.
Mm-hmm. Okay, last question for Ben. This is from Arian. Ben, I've always known you to be an extreme guy, going after things or people, and would think is impossible, that you would think is impossible, and being all in to whatever you are all into. So what would you like to be known for being all about? Finish the sentence. Ben is extremely blank.
Then I answer it.
Yeah.
Focused on growth and freedom. I think I'm extremely, if you look at my like through line, it manifested itself in Christianity and church for that time period, but I think I even grew out of that box. But what I was more obsessed with, I think, and I have always been obsessed with, is growth and freedom. And it's really why I think I'm obsessed with making this podcast. Like, I want to be heard and share our story, but I think our story can offer growth and freedom to other people also. And I think even in sharing it, it offers growth and freedom to us. Mm-hmm. All right, we made it through the Ben and Cammie sections. Now we're on to theology. We only have really 3 or 4 questions left.
Yeah. Okay. First one. This is from Jessica. Not that I believe 100% in the Bible anymore, but knowing Jeremy probably does, how do you think this verse can be reconciled in his mind? Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Would it be because he considers you all unrepentant? I find it so fascinating, though not surprising, that he used scripture to discipline you, but not for the other way around.
I mean,
Yeah.
This is really tricky because we
don't know.
We've had so little communication with Jeremy.
Yeah, so it'd be all speculation.
But I do know that I am considered unrepentant. And I think they've washed their hands of me to a point where they don't see. The whole point of exiling someone, I think there's a couple like reasons why it's done systematically. Mm-hmm. One is it kind of lets you off the hook. Like in the Christian world, you're responsible for all the other Christians. Like you're supposed to call your brother and love them and take them meals and all this type of stuff. And the second they're not, you kind of don't have to do that stuff anymore. And the second is we haven't had many meals brought to us in the last 3 years. But the second is you're able to distance yourself from their tarnished reputation. So if people, if we are, I don't know what were we accused of again?
Soiled.
Pride and fucked up and like living in the flesh, and I was seducing gullible women or something.
Right.
Then it's been the unrepentant asshole doing it, not been the Christian on Team Jeremy doing it. So his name doesn't. And I think that's actually the bigger. Like, this is why this concept of scapegoating, I would love to do, like, a whole episode on this sometime. I'm still, like, trying to understand it. Mm-hmm. But this idea of scapegoating, where you take the sin and you put it on something and you send it away from you as a way of coping with the problems of the world, is what happens with a lot of outsiders and institutions. They cast people out so that they don't have to deal with what's inside of them, so that they can feel good by saying that the sin is this external thing that we sent out of the community.
I tried my best. I did everything I could, and he's still an asshole, so.
Yeah, so I don't know what Jeremy would say. It's fascinating because I publicly came out on Facebook when we first started making this thing, mostly for the shock factor, but it was true. And I said, I don't identify as a Christian anymore. And like I said, it was a true statement. Like, I don't like that phrase. I think it's confusing. When I see Christians, I'm like, I'm not that, whatever that is.
We're not like Team Jesus. Yay.
But I've wondered at what point, because these people, our family members included, they have they view themselves as having an obligation to the lost, like to unsaved non-Christians. So while we were like shitty Christians, we were kind of like in a bad place.
Yeah.
But once I say, hey, we're not Christians, we're like the lost uncle.
Yeah, but I don't think it's that simple. I think they think that we should know better.
I know, you become almost more of a threat in a way.
Yeah,
but it's not consistent with
you drank the Kool-Aid and you still walked away. Oh,
yeah,
that's a special level of hell for you.
But it doesn't make sense because in a way, the way that they treat, like we know of other ways that they like target Muslims and neighbors, and they're like totally like projects. But my soul is in as much danger as theirs, but because they don't see hope in me, they won't love me.
Yeah.
Which shows that the love is only geared towards conversion.
Right. And
that kind of sucks.
Being converted or staying converted.
What a life. All right.
Okay. Next question. You've talked a lot about the study of the Bible in your past, but did you guys have any exposure to church history or academic theology in your Bible college, discipleship training, or mentoring with Jeremy or others? I ask because evangelicalism places a high value on Scripture, but often to the exclusion of historical and substantive theology. And this is from Derek.
Dude, I think that's Pastor Derek, but you can tell from this question. Holy business.
Yes, I would definitely say they put a very, very, very high value on Scripture, the highest value on Scripture.
So our evangelicalism did not give two shits about church history, I don't think.
Yeah. Our brand of it.
Yeah, but did you guys have any exposure to church history or academic theology in your Bible club? But we had exposure mostly through our friend Sonny, who was Anglican.
Well, first he was Episcopalian. He was never that.
I don't think so.
Oh,
that was the wrong team.
I know. I'm just saying whatever. Anyways.
Maybe he had a stint. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so for 3 or 4 years that I was with Sonny almost every day, I heard about church history like it was my hobby.
Like you basically got a degree in it by just hanging around Sonny.
And I don't get degrees in anything. But I heard it was unique, and I was really actually totally ready to buy into it because it sounded more stable. I could see the value in it and the allure to, and I guess I'm not even fully explaining what it is, but basically evangelicalism had thrown out church history as being a valuable resource and kind of prides itself in being newer and better and more evolved.
And therefore a lot of traditions as well.
Yeah. And so what I understand is I think might be called high church. I'm not sure, but it's there's a format of liturgy that is based upon a hierarchical structure of leadership that has traditions and disciplines and documents that go back thousands of years. And the idea is that tradition itself is sacred because God
anointed or commissioned, or not commissioned, well, maybe these people.
And Catholics, I think, fall into this category. And so at first, because there was so much chaos in our life, there seemed to be a lot of safety in that type of definition. But I would say I'm a bit disillusioned by what we've heard and seen there also in terms of feeling like it's not the answer to our problems. Not that he's suggesting that, but okay.
All right, last question is from Katie. I imagine this process of sharing your story via podcasts and YouTube is cathartic. Do you look back at the past few years and thank God for any of it? I can clearly hear how painful it's been, but I wonder how it may also be relieving and possibly rejuvenating. I am thankful for parts. I guess I could say for most of it. I think I'm still in that process of probably one day I'll be able to say for all of it. But I can definitely see how going through this stuff has freed me in a lot of ways. Has helped me evolve, which I believe in, and I put value in evolving as a person.
I would not trade what we've been through for anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the lingo's throwing me up because she says, do you look back at the last few years and thank God for any of it? It's not the lingo that I use to attribute the experience at this point.
I just see it as, this happens to people. Like, you go through painful experiences, and sometimes that wakes you up to things that you couldn't see before.
But I am so happy with our life and freedom now. And I don't want to paint it like some fucking rosy-ass picture.
Yeah, it's not all rosy.
I mean, our life is hard in terms of spiritually, like, it feels like continually the ground that we used to stand on is not there anymore. And even Christmas this last week was like kind of emotional, not in a like crying nice way, but like, or even a family way, but like in a confusing way where it's like, oh, this thing we used to celebrate, we don't know what we're celebrating anymore. And it's like, it's disorienting. So I don't want to paint it like it's really nice, but for the most part, the amount of restriction that has been lifted off of that we now realize was from social pressure, and beliefs that we were holding on to like a security blanket, we don't have anymore. And I mean, there's a few things I say again and again about our experience. One is, I don't think we ever would have chosen it. I don't think we had the courage to walk away from our community and everything. I think we needed to be kicked out to be out. So in that way, it sucks. Like, I hated it. It's fucked up. Like, it doesn't excuse what family has done and some of these other assholes. But, it got us where we needed to get, or at least where we are. And, I mean, there was this one story, like, this is not a Bible lesson, but it was a story I heard a lot growing up. And I thought about it in light of what we were going through, and it's a story of Joseph. So in Genesis, Joseph gets he like has this fancy jacket, right, that he's given to by his dad because he's his dad's favorite. So his brothers don't like him, so they basically sell him into slavery in Egypt. Then Joseph goes to Egypt and spends a number of years there, like basically getting his ass kicked and in jail and in slavery. But then he rises to power. And in his rise to power, this is like all told in like the Prince of Egypt. In his rise to power, he meets his brothers again, and he like has forgiven them, And I always like really wrestled with that. Like, how did he forgive them? Like, was he faking it? Was it just like forgive and forget? And you're just like, oh yeah, you know how you sold me into slavery and basically separated me from my family and ruined my life? No worries. Like, I don't even. Never happened. I don't think it was that. I think it was maybe that what happened was so beneficial and valuable and good that the amount of pain he went through didn't really shake a stick at the amount of value that came from it. And when I think of our life, I for a long time I thought about how we were treated by some people that were acting like just absolute dickheads. And it would really frustrate me and piss me off. And I would play the scenario in my head and how I would make it right and tell them off and all these things. But what started to happen to our life is the best feeling and change and evolution that was beyond our wildest dreams. And then I look back and I'm like, how did it happen? It's like, well, it's what the assholes did. And I'm like, I'm not ready to say thank you, but it doesn't make me. It doesn't make me angry anymore. Now I'm not gonna be like hanging out with these folks and letting them like rub my back. I was gonna say like something a lot more sexually.
Rub your dick.
Hey! I was trying to keep this appropriate.
Yeah. So we have a last question. I didn't realize. The actual last question is...
This is like a different topic, though.
Yeah, okay. It's not in the theology topic. Does the group still exist in your area? And this is hard to define because this group was like Stephen came from somewhere else, a different group, and Jeremy came from a different group. And so... do you want to talk about this fun stuff?
Yeah, let's fucking do it. I don't know why we're talking about it, except for if you're in the Cincinnati area, I want this to be out there, this side of the story. And I guess what I want to say is I'm not saying these names of these ministries and people so that you can go and teach them a lesson. But we also have nothing to hide, and I don't feel it's valuable in protecting people's identity where they're a part of our story. And I think that they could be dangerous and hurtful to other people. So we are going to give the names of these under that caveat that we're not asking that you go and sabotage them. So I'm just going to read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's kind of like, where are they now? And the reason why this is an important way to end is because next week we're moving on and we're going to share our story. But this is kind of like...
I mean, share our story because we already did.
We're starting over at the beginning. No, we're going to share our story of really the last year or two post these groups.
Okay.
So these are one of the organizations. This is called Family Teams, and they have a website. And this is Jeremy, your brother. This is the most ironic because Jeremy teaches family conferences that people fly from around the country and to hear a Christian biblical viewpoint of family, which is just like, I kind of wanted to pick at it, but I didn't feel right about it. But I was like, I kind of want people to know, like, this dude won't talk to his brother-in-law or sister or nephews and nieces, that live 3 miles away. Like, so when you sign up for Family Teams, like, this is what you're signing up for. But this is from their website. I think it's about their family. We are living as a family team on a mission in the city of Cincinnati. Jeremy had an epiphany over 2 decades ago, realizing that the way we do family in the West is mostly a failed experiment, and the scriptures are calling us back to a bigger and better design. Since then, we've been impacting families in the greater Ohio region for years through various projects and resources. Yeah, impacted us. And this is weird to even read this because this is the lingo that we spoke for so long.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't want to mock it, but now I see it a little bit differently. If you go to, where we talked about cults and kind of the loaded language last week, there's a lot of like code words for stuff that are, I don't know.
So the next group thing, ministry, you can call it. Okay, so it's called 1KH, which is
fucked up branding.
Code for 1,000 houses.
Yeah.
And this is also my brother and another family.
Steven, the guy that also was a founder and shareholder at Epiphia, not to be confused with the Steven at Crossroads.
Right. So this ministry says, we believe homes with faith-based rhythms steeped in love function as the ideal hub for discipleship. Transformed homes lead to a transformed city. When homes provide the environment for disciple making, all other ministries can be organized to reach and transform the entire city.
So this is
emphasis on entire.
So what's weird, we should joke about, well, it's going to be 999 homes now that we're kicked out, not 1,000.
One.
But their goal, I mean, if you read, their goal is to make 1,000 discipling families in the city. That's their big picture here, I guess. I've heard Jeremy talk about this. But that sounds nice, except for now that we see like how people get treated by the leader of the whole discipleship movement, we're like, whoa. Like, we're not talking about 1,000 families loving folks here. We're talking about 1,000 families excommunicating people. I mean, it's one side of the story.
Yep.
And the final thing for Jeremy, these are like websites.
Jeremy and Steven.
Is the Story Formed Life. And this is the website, or this is the curriculum that we taught for close to 10 years, and we moved out here to go through, and it's still being taught to this day in churches around here. And just from the website, this line says, today we are taught knowledge is power. Jesus taught that power is in belief. So there's a lot of emphasis on confidence in belief, and not just any beliefs, but the beliefs that they will tell you about in this curriculum. Two others. Oh man, I could read Stephen. Oh, I don't even want to go there. But the guy that led the discipleship, or the discipline process for me, he's an older guy that I consider my friend. His name is David, and he mentors young men around town. And he has this website called the Heart Trust, where it's like basically raising money to do this. And so I just had a curiosity. I went back there, and this is like the front page. It says, "Bringing the presence and revelation of God to the heart of man for intimate healing and sustainable growth." And like now to read that actually makes me sick. Like 5 years ago, I would have been like, "Amen, brother, send him $500." Mm-hmm. Now I'm like, okay. I mean, you'll get into our story next week, but words like bringing the presence and revelation of God to the heart of fucking man for intimate fucking healing. I mean, the words don't mean jack shit to me anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Let's tell stories instead of talking about what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen, the guy that in my opinion, was in the top 2 most damaging to us, is on the leadership team at Crossroads. But I want to also be clear that I don't believe he was acting on behalf of Crossroads or with Crossroads awareness. But he is. I mean, so the good news is I don't think we got kicked out of Crossroads, or Crossroads has anything officially to do with this. But after hearing the story of how he treated us, it's also a little bit tough to rectify that what in 2017 was claiming to be the fastest growing church in America employs a man like this to lead the teaching curriculum of the church. Mm-hmm. At least his claim was that he was on the teaching leadership team. There was like 3 people that were like responsible for all the curriculum taught on all the campuses to the 30,000 people all the time. So that's where they are now. We're at an hour.
Yeah.
This was the least exciting Q&A for me. I felt like I kind of lost some steam. But
I thought it was good.
Okay, good. I mean, you guys asked the question, so
right.
I really hope this answers those questions.
Yeah.
I hope it was interesting. I guess I'm excited to get back to the story.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the story has the most power.
This is like bonus material, basically.
Yeah, it was like a massive intermission.
Yeah.
But let us know what you thought. Was this helpful? Why or why not? I mean, the fact of the matter is we're like going to run out of our story pretty soon. We're going to have to come up with other episodes of stuff to talk about. So in a way, I don't mind taking a break. But
yeah.
Okay, well.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to this and all the kind comments on YouTube.
Yeah.
And all the kind reviews. Remember, go team. 100 reviews.
We need 19 more people.
We can do it. Rah, rah.
Be one of those people.
And no, we really would appreciate it. And what else do I have to say? This podcast is available on iTunes and Google Play and Spotify and on YouTube for the video version if you want that. I don't think we have any resources to put in the comments. Normally I put all those things in the links, but I'm not going to link to this shit of where these people are currently at, because if you're around, you know, and if you're not around, you don't need to know. That's my view on that. Yeah. And something else. Oh, yes. We have a Facebook discussion group that is private, so you can be on it. You have to answer the questions to get on it. We screen people to try and make it as safe as possible for people to discuss and share their story and to take these topics further in discussion. I want to hear, have you seen these things in your life, and how have you seen it? How have you felt, and what are your examples? So I think we're up to more than 150 members there. It's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some people, I see a through line of people saying that they felt like they were crazy. I mean, they were gaslit and they were told they were crazy, and now they're meeting people that are like them, that have the same story for the first time in their life. They're like making this connection.
Yeah.
Which is like really rad that we can be a part of that.
Absolutely.
I love it. Next week, we'll be coming back with part 11, and getting into the part of the story I'm not excited about telling, which is what do we currently believe and where have we come in the last 2 years?
And it's harder to tell because we're in it. We're not talking about the past as much. We're talking about the present. So
And it's a lot more vague. There's not like
yeah.
heroes and villains and stuff.
So be prepared to not get your socks blown off.
Yeah, it'll be boring. Never come back. Just rate us before you leave. 5 stars.
Yeah.
All
That's right.
See you guys.
Peace.